Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my bracket predictions for the Countdown Cup. I really don't know who I think is going to win this one this time around. It's a very close tournament. I am super excited for it because I think this is one of the first tournaments this season where it is super wide open. I don't think there's any favorite right now. I think there's a lot of things that could happen that could definitely make it go one way or the other, so that is what I'm looking forward to. So let's just go, let's jump in, let's talk about what we have. Two teams who are making their first tournament appearances this season, the Seoul Dynasty and the LA Gladiators, and two teams who have been to two other tournaments so far, the Atlanta Reign and the Chengdu Hunters. None of the teams have won a tournament yet, so we're guaranteed to get a new tournament champion for this season. And not only that, none of these teams have won a tournament ever. These are teams that have never won a stage playoff in 2018 or 2019, never won a tournament in 2020. Seoul Dynasty came close with the May Melee last year. Chengdu came close in the June Joust. The Gladiators were a top seed. I think they were the number one seed in the 2018 Stage 4 finals. Atlanta, I mean, they've made the past two tournaments. So these are all teams that have had some success, but none of them have been able to actually go the distance and win a tournament. So that's why I'm very excited. And we have two teams in the Seoul Dynasty and the LA Gladiators who, after three tournaments of, well, the Seoul Dynasty, three straight knockouts of just barely missing out, losing to Chengdu, losing to Shanghai, losing to Chengdu again. Finally, now they're in a tournament. The LA Gladiators, after two heartbreaking tournament losses in their knockouts in the June Joust and in the Summer Showdown, finally get that win in a Game 5 and find their way to the Countdown Cup. So I'm very excited for this one. I think we have a very great set of teams this time around. This is the most excited I have been for a tournament since the May Melee. The June Joust was pretty bland, kind of went exactly as we expected it to, with the exception of Shanghai kind of winning in the finals. Summer Showdown was really kind of boring because it went exactly as people expected it would, with the Shanghai Dragons winning that one pretty convincingly. But this time around, it's fun, it's exciting, who knows what's going to happen. Lots of things at stake. The Seoul Dynasty, if they do better than the Chengdu Hunters, they guarantee themselves a spot in the playoffs. LA Gladiators could get a guaranteed playoff spot. The Atlanta Reign guarantee themselves a playoff spot if they perform well. So this is a really, really great kind of group of teams we have here, all competing for the same things. So I am so very excited for this one. So let's jump in and let's see what I think is going to happen. We're going to start with the Seoul Dynasty versus the Atlanta Reign. This is an interesting matchup. The Atlanta Reign, a team that have tended to go against the kind of ball compositions that we've seen a lot of in the Eastern region and even kind of popping up in the Western region as well. The Chengdu Hunters, Shanghai Dragons have been very good ball teams so far the past couple of months, so we know they are teams that kind of like to run those compositions. The Seoul Dynasty are a very interesting team. I didn't get to watch them a ton over the past couple of weeks just because I've been very busy, but the things that the Seoul Dynasty like to run, they've been playing some balls, with Zarya or Diva. They've been playing some Winston Zarya. They've been playing some Orisa Diva every so often. They've kind of run a mix, and I don't really know what to expect from them as kind of their primary composition. I think if the Atlanta Reign are running Orisa comps, which is what I expect them to run for the most part, I don't think Seoul will try to force ball compositions if they don't have to. They've never really seemed like a team that does that. I think if they can run the Orisa compositions and they can run kind of Tracer Sombra compositions, which is where I think they should lean heavily into, because I think that is where Prophet and Fitz shine the most, are heroes like Tracer and Sombra, or the Cowboy, the occasional Widowmaker. But that's kind of the heroes we've really been seeing recently are compositions that lean on Tracer Sombra and Cowboy. So I'm interested in how this series goes. Atlanta without Pelican makes me a little bit worried. Farah has seen a lot of playtime as well. in this tournament. And without Pelican, I feel like the Pharah out of the rain is going to be a little bit worse. And I think that you are going up against the Prophet and Fitz, who are an incredible DPS duo, and we know how dangerous Prophet is on that Pharah as well. This is an interesting series to me. Right now, I feel like the edge goes to the Seoul Dynasty. I just think they have a little... They're a more well-rounded team. They are a little bit more flexible, and they don't have this lack of their kind of star DPS player that we have with the Rain right now, unfortunately. I think it'll be a close game, probably like a 3-2. But I really like the Seoul Dynasty. I've been high on them all season. I think they're a very good team. And I really do feel like they are a team to look out for to potentially win this tournament. I think they are that good. Chengdu's a good team. Atlanta's a good team. Gladiators are a good team. But I think the Seoul Dynasty, just something about them has me very intrigued to see what they do. But as we move on to the second matchup, it is the LA Gladiators versus the Chengdu Hunters. This is where I get really intrigued, because we know what the Chengdu Hunters like to do. They like to run the ball. They like to run Jinmu on the Pharah with Leave on the Tracer or on the Sombra. Even though Jinmu usually kind of plays the Sombra. Leave will play that Tracer. He'll play Cowboy. He'll play whatever hit scan they kind of need. So this is a very interesting look. They look very good if they're on the Zarya. Late Young's Diva is much improved. So I'm really interested in this matchup because the Gladiators, I think, are a strong team, but I don't really know what composition is their best look. Muse is pretty good on all of the main tanks, but there's not one where I think Muse looks like he's the best. And so with that type of play out of the Gladiators and that kind of style of play, it's tough for me to really know for sure what is going to be the best look from the Gladiators. I think they probably will favor a lot of the ball compositions, especially because Chengdu is going to be running the ball as well. We know that's what Chengdu likes to run. The Gladiators have been pretty comfortable running it recently. So I'd feel pretty confident that that is something that the Gladiators will also want to play into, because they know it's something that they're going to be up against. Maybe they try to run more counter ball compositions with Orisa, but it doesn't really seem to work as well as what just kind of running ball head first into another ball is. It's interesting. As much as I am a fan of the Gladiators and I like what we've seen out of them, I just don't feel confident enough right now in their ability to beat a team that is as good as Chengdu. The Gladiators have not had any of that international experience yet. They haven't played against any of the Eastern region teams, so they haven't really had to go up against an APAC ball team yet. That, to me, is going to be a very difficult thing to overcome. So I'm going to give this series to the Chengdu Hunters in a 3-1 fashion. I like the Gladiators. I think they're very good, but I'm just not quite ready to say that they have what it takes to beat the Chengdu Hunters yet, when they haven't had any of that experience up against one of those teams. Let's move on to the winners round 2 game, the winners finals. Seoul Dynasty against the Chengdu Hunters, if this is to be, if this bracket were to happen. These teams have played a lot recently, and I don't really know what to make of it. When they play in the regular season, it seems pretty much like a Seoul Dynasty win every time. But when they play in these tournament games, it goes the direction of the Chengdu Hunters. So I don't really know where to expect this series to go. We know what Chengdu runs. We know what Chengdu is going to play for the most part. I think the Seoul Dynasty are a super flexible team, and we've seen them come very close to beating them. Last time they played in the Summer Showdown qualifiers and the regional knockouts there, it was a very close series where I think that Seoul kind of didn't necessarily play to their strengths as much as they could have. I think they've done that a little bit more this tournament cycle. Gesture playing, I think, has helped them a bit as well. I like Marvel, but I think Gesture just provides a little bit more flash to this team. And so this to me, if we do get this matchup, this is the best possible matchup. And I hope that this is what we get in the finals, honestly, because I think these two teams are just so good. And every game we've gotten from them this season feels like it's one of the best games of the season because they are just so interesting to watch. They play in a different way. Seoul doesn't necessarily like to play the same way that Chengdu plays. Chengdu has their own style, so I'm incredibly intrigued by this matchup. I feel like you have to give it to the Chengdu Hunters. I think it would be close. I think probably a 3-2 series in the Hunters' favor. It's just been that way so far this season. In the big games when these two teams play, it almost always goes the way of the Hunters. I can't explain it, really. It just seems to be that way, and so I kind of just think it will be that way again. That just seems like the normal thing that we have been seeing so far this season. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe Seoul will be able to pull this one out and be the victorious team finally in that matchup. But for now, I am just going to give it to the Chengdu Hunters because they have been the team to find more success in that matchup recently. And so for me, that's just kind of what I would expect to see. Moving to the Western matchup in the bottom there. I think that's an interesting series. The Atlanta Reign and LA Gladiators games recently have been super good. I mean, they've think the last 2, maybe even last 3, they've played a lot this season, and they've all gone to 5 maps. But the difference here now is that the Atlanta Reign will not have Pelican. Pelican is confirmed he's not traveling to Hawaii after his hospital visit that he had, so this could be the Gladiators' chance to get that edge that gives them the victory over the Reign. They have been trying and trying and trying all season to finally get that win over the Reign in one of these big moments, in one of these big matches. And I think this might be the chance just because of the fact that the arguable best player on the Atlanta Reign will not be at this tournament. I think no matter what, this series will be very close. We've seen these two teams play very similar styles. They match up well against each other, I think. So I'm interested to see what happens if this game happens. But I feel like you have to give some credit to the Gladiators for playing the Reign as closely as they have so far this season. It's not like Edison Kai is a noticeable downgrade, and it's not like this team's already, all of a sudden going to be just like significantly worse because of having to play Edison Kai as opposed to Kai Pelican or Edison Pelican. But it is going to change some things up, and it is going to change some of the momentum because the Atlanta Reign are not going to be able to run the types of compositions they are the most comfortable on, or at least if they want to run those compositions, they're not going to be as strong as they would be. They're still a very good team. This is a DPS trio where I think you can put any 2 in, and it's arguably the best in the league. But we definitely will see some difference in what we probably would have seen if Pelican were healthy. And so I have to take that into consideration. I 100% think the Atlanta Reign have what it takes to make the finals of this tournament, even without Pelican. But these are all really good teams playing in this tournament. There's no weak link, in my opinion. And so with that in my mind, I'm going to favor the Gladiators for that one. Moving on to the losers finals, LA Gladiators, Seoul Dynasty. Interesting series once again. Two teams playing very interesting styles, different types of things we have seen from them so far. I think the Gladiators have an advantage in terms of what they can do in terms of kind of flexibility. Prophet's a very flexible player, and so you don't have to worry about kind of being shoehorned into playing certain things if you're the Seoul Dynasty. But the Gladiators, with Kevster and Birdring and Mirror, they can kind of play anything. They can play those Farah compositions pretty well. They can play Tracer Sombra pretty well. They can play the hit scan pretty well. So they have the means to do that. the Soul Dynasty have their 2 players, and Fitz can play the Sombra, and he can play the Hitscan. Prophet can play the Tracer really well, and he can play the Pharah really well, so they have the flexibility. The Gladiators, though, will feel a little more shoehorned in when they play certain styles, right? Like, if Mirror comes in, you kind of know you're going to see the Pharah, and if Moth is in, you know you're getting Pharah Mercy, and there's not going to be a change, most likely. The Soul Dynasty have the ability to change a lot more, so I think they can pressure the Gladiators a lot more. The Gladiators can be flexible in terms of who they play, but when those players are in, they're not as flexible. I expect to see a lot of skewed, and I don't expect to see Birdwing and Kevster get subbed out very often, because that's been what they have tended to do recently. And I think when that is their duo, they are their most flexible. Skewed is going to play your Brig. I think we saw them play Zen Bap a bit this past weekend when they were playing the Shock, so they have experimented with things like that. I don't remember seeing much of that before this weekend, or this past weekend, so who knows what they are going to go for, but I'm very interested to see what happens with this matchup with these 2 teams. I favor the Soul Dynasty. I think they're the better team. I think if they win this one, it probably is a 3-1, 3-2 series. I just get that feeling, so my prediction is a 3-2 for the Soul Dynasty. I like the Dynasty better. I just think they've looked better this season. I think they have more pop-off potential. I think they just have a stronger core roster, and they've just looked a little bit better so far this season. But it's difficult to say because we haven't seen either of these teams match up against a team from another region. So this, to me, is the hardest game to predict of any. Right? If the Gladiators go up against the Dynasty, I have no idea what to expect because we won't have seen either of these teams play against. This would be the Dynasty would have been having played one game against a Western region team at this point. Gladiators would have played one other game against an Eastern region team at this point. So who knows what's going to happen with that matchup if we do get it. I'd say it's a pretty good chance we get it, because I definitely favor the Hunters against the Gladiators, and I think the Reign Dynasty game is a coin flip. So I'd say there was a decent chance this matchup will happen no matter what. So I'm interested in seeing that, and I'm excited for the possibility of a Dynasty Gladiators clash in this tournament. So move on to the Grand Finals, Chengdu Hunters versus the Seoul Dynasty. I want this to be the Grand Finals. I think these are 2 teams who every time they've played this season, it's been incredible. It has been close. It has been a blow-for-blow, series. And so I hope we get to see this matchup twice this tournament, and hopefully it still delivers well, and we get good results from this. I still favor the Chengdu Hunters. I think that the way the meta is right now just favors them a little bit more. But I think it's close. I think it is close no matter what. So I'm going to go with the 4-3 in the favor of the Chengdu Hunters. They look very good. I think they look like potentially the best team at this meta, outside of the Shanghai Dragons, but they didn't really go as far in on this playoff potential or this tournament as some of the other ones in the past. So we'll see what happens. It's a good time. I think this tournament's gonna be really interesting and really exciting. But I think right now Chengdu looks like the team to beat for the Countdown Cup. Those are my predictions. That is what I think will happen. Let me know in the comments down below your thoughts. If you agree, if you disagree, and if you disagree, who do you think will be the champion of the Countdown Cup? Have I overestimated the Seoul Dynasty? Have I underestimated the Atlanta Reign? Have I overestimated the Gladiators? Underestimated the Gladiators? Let me know your thoughts. I would love to hear that from you down below. But that is all for me for today. If you enjoyed this video and want to like it in the future, consider liking and subscribing. I hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.